Okay, man, there we go. Like you know, I'm Joseph Gata. Welcome to my study for understanding some of the
As you know, some
lessons of
people
English that I'm going to
ask the
teach you.
meaning of a
The lesson of today
but
will
they
be
don't
a little
understand
bit
how
different.
the hardware
So,
system.
yes,
Yes.
the lesson of
And
today will
here
be
we will
about the
discuss
computer
some
science.
important
So,
system
why
software
we are
details.
going to study the computer science? Because of the fact
The
that
operating
I
system.
just
Yes, as you can see,
saw
we
one
have
of
the
the
image
interview
here.
of the just
Firstly,
of
this is the
Elon Musk
hardware
in the
that will be
Viva
used,
So
and
I
then
mean that this
the
is important
hardware
for
will
us to know the AI
interact
and
will
also the automation.
activate the
You know,
system
the fact
software,
of
and then the
making the
system
robot
software
and
will start with
the
the
artificial
application software.
intelligence. So this is really
So
something
it
that
is
I
very
want also
important
to study with you.
to
The
know
mechanical
because
engineering is not
this is
only
even
limited on
basic
the fact of
knowledges about
just understanding
computer
how
science.
the internal combustion
How
engine work
computer
or any
science
engines like that, but
also
this is
computer
also
means
about
working in
everything
teamwork.
like that, and the robotic engineering,
So
the
operating system
artificial
is a large
intelligence,
language
even the computer
of
science
the
is
computer,
also
and it
included in
connects
the
all the
mechanical
basic
engineering.
devices like
You
the
know,
CPU,
nowadays this is not
monitor,
only the
keyboard,
electricity
and mouse,
and some
plugins
of
to
the
power
mechanical engines like that. No,
supply and
we
switching
have also
on
to include
thinking.
the
You have
computer
everything
science
in
about
place.
that. So this is
But the
something
computer
that
will
we
not start
have to
from
remake as
scratch.
lessons.
That means
Before we
it has
already make that
an
title,
operating
but
system
now
there.
what I want
Yes.
is to make the review
The
about
operating
what you
system
study,
has
or even
different
not
stages
only
for
the
how the
review,
computer
but we to
works.
study even in details
For installing
uh,
the
some of
function
the
of the computer because the
subjects
operating
for what
system
we
keeping
understand
all
how
the
the computer
hardware
science will be
uh,
included in
which
the
is
mechanical
basically
engineering. You
written
know,
by the
the
users in a
computer
way that they
is
can use
very
that.
useful
For
in
example,
our
when
world,
we
so
put
everyone
the
also has to
button
know how
A
it
here
works.
and then
This is
on
really
screen
important. You
it
know,
will appear
everyone that is
basically
making, even
here
when
A.
I will be
Why?
a
Because
mechanical
the
engineer, I have to
system
make the
software
design. So for making the
the
design, I
operating
have to
system
use the
is
computer.
making
I
is
have
not
to
wrong.
use all the
The
capacities of the
hardware will
computers.
be just
So
with
this is something that you have
the
to
display
understand. This is
by
just that the computer science is everywhere,
by
and
the
the science, I would say,
so yes,
the
and
engineering
what kind
of
of
the computer
function it
science
is.
is also included in some of the systems, like
It
for the
makes
mechanical systems,
coordination
for example,
between
for
the
the fact of making the
hardware,
robot,
the
you are just
different
using the
devices in the
actuator. So
hardware
everything
and
like that is just
the
related to the
coordination
mechanical
and
engineering, or
scheduling
even
multiple
the fact
tasks
of
as
using
from
just the
here
fact
with
of converting
the
the
operating system.
electricity
We
to the
saw
mechanical
which
work.
task
This is
enable the
related to the
computer to access
mechanical
network,
engineering and
enable users
even
to
the,
access
I would
and
say, the
use
cars,
application software.
because you know,
Yes, this is
there are some of the
these
cars
are
that
just
are just making
the reasons for why
that will be
we
made,
use the
I would
operating
say,
system.
that will be made
Like I
in
said,
just a way that they will be uh,
it enables
just
also the computer to access
independent
the
of
network.
us. So
It is
they will
important
drive
to take into
itself.
account because
So
the
this
computer
is just a concept
is
of
also
the
used for this type
Tesla
of the function
company,
because of the
just
fact
for
that it
making
can
some of
just share
the cars that
some
are
of the
just driving
resources from
itself.
one
So
computer to
everything like
another.
that will be
So it is
able to
important
be done thanks to the computer
and
science.
what
The
again
fact of
enables
making
users
the,
to
I
access
would
and
say,
use application software.
the
Yes,
code, or even some of the
to
things
use the
like that.
application
In
software.
fact,
So
this is
this is
about just the
through the
code,
operating
you know,
system that you can use
the
the application software.
programmation. So the
To share
programmation will
some
be
of the
made in a
keywords or
sort
some
of
of the things like that, the
the
operation system
just the
has to
machine
make
will
a
be
sort
able
of
to do
correct this
just
mistake
just to be
because you have to
independent
use
of
that
the
in a very
users.
correct
But
way. This is
thanks to
also one
our
of the job of
instructions,
the
I mean that
operating
in
system.
this way that
Like I
will
said,
work as
besides
quickly
the
as
initial
possible. So
booting,
it
these
is
are some of
important
the
to know that
functions
this
of
is not
the
easy because you have
operating
to
system. Manage the
just to
computer
think
resources
about a
like
lot of
hardware, software,
parameters
share
about the fact that
resources,
when the car
leveraging
will
the
be able to
resources,
drive,
prevent
what
default
type
during
of
software
the
use. Like I
what
said,
are the
control the
features, I would say, what
overuse
are the
of the computer.
characteristics that you have to
Yes,
take
like
into
some of the
account. So
viruses or some
it
of
will
the
not
things
be
like that
easy
that
for
have
Elon
to be
Musk to
just
put that
avoid
in practice, but I mean
avoid
that with a lot of
detecting
work,
by
yes,
the
it will be
computer as well.
possible.
So it is
Yes.
important.
So this is really important
So
for us
one
to
of the
study the computer
earliest
science. And
operating system was the
yes,
MS
you are going to study the basic
developed by
knowledges
Microsoft
about that.
for IBM PC. It was a command line
And
interface.
then you are going to study
OS
also
that
the AI. You
revolutionized
know,
the
you are going
PC
to make an
market.
introduction
Those
about the
was
artificial
difficult to use
intelligence.
because of its
Then you will
interface.
just
The
be
users
able to,
needed to remember
I would
instructions
say, to
to their
make
tasks.
your mind
This
a
made
little bit
computers more
more
accessible
free,
and user
if I can
friendly.
say.
Microsoft developed a
Yes, because
graphical
we
user
cannot be
interface
only concentrated
based
in the mechanical
OS
engineering
called
lesson, but
Windows,
you have to be a little
which
bit wide
transformed the way
because
people use
the
the
mechanical
hardware.
engineering
Before that
lesson
was
is
very
also
difficult for
including
us
the
to use the
computer
computer
science,
because of
the
the fact that the
electrical
operating system
engineering,
was MS. Like they
the
said, procedure.
the
You have to
automation
remember
and everything and like that. So this is important to
It
take
was
that
very
into account
complicated
also.
because just at the same time that I have to remember these instructions, I have to use all the functions of the computer. So yes, it is
So
very
yes,
difficult
the
to
lesson
manage.
of today
So what the
will be about
Microsoft
the
company
system
just
software,
did was
especially
just
that
to
will be
use
about the operating
to make
system. So
so to create
firstly, what is the
an interface that
software?
we
The
can use
software,
just
this is
quickly.
the
So
kind
what we
of the
call
programs
user
that are
interface.
used
So
for making the
this
computer
is what we
working.
are using
You
now.
know,
We are using
we
that
studied that
very
the
easily.
software and the
There's some
hardware
of
are
the
just
icons like
complementary,
that,
and
and yes, it is
each
very
other,
useful
I would say,
for us for the
one of
users
that. So the
because
software
now
cannot be
yes they
used
make that very
without
good.
any
And now we are
good
gonna talk
hardware, you
about
know.
the way
So the
that
kind of the
the
programs that you have to
instructions are
use
just stored
cannot be
for what
manipulated
they
by
will
the
be
users,
used
or
by
we
the
cannot
computer.
communicate with the
Firstly,
computer without an
let's go to the
appropriate
transform through
hardware.
the
So,
assembler.
and
The
this is also the
assembler
case for the
is just
hardware. The
a
hardware
software
are
that programs
useless
as
without the
Netherlands
software, without the programs, you know.
Netherlands
You know, the
programs
software and the hardware are
Netherlands
making the
code.
computer.
Yes,
If
so
we
this
don't have
is
the hardware, this is not a
about
computer.
the first
If you
kind
don't have the software, this is not only the hardware, this
of
is not a
operating
computer.
system that I
So
talked
you have to
about.
take
Just
into
the
account
fact that you
these
have to
two
remember the
uh,
instructions to
these two
program
concepts,
that so to
you
use
know.
the
So
computer.
the
Like I
software
said, it has
is
some of the
just
advantages.
constituted of three
It increases
types. You have the utility software,
the
the
efficiency
system
of the
software, and
software,
the application
whereas
software.
whereas
Mostly, we talk
everything
about just two types:
is
the system
linear.
software and the application
And the
software. The utility
utility
software is
increases as
just
the number of
one of the
errors
kind of the
increases,
application
and
software,
hence
just in
the
some of the
readiness
lessons.
time.
But
Yes.
I'm talking about these three types. Why?
Thanks to
Because
this use,
the
the
utility
first
software is just a
was very
combination
effective.
of this, of the
Yes,
system software
it
and
was
the
not
application
very
software. But
different at the
yes, this
beginning.
is
And
not
programmer
I
has
would say this
access
is
to
not what
hardware
we have to
resources
study
and
now. I will
hence has the
explain you that
possibility
later. But
to
what you have to understand,
manipulate
this
the
is just
commands
that
to the
there
specification.
is one of the program that is very
But
useful
even
for how
like
the
that,
computer
that was
work.
very
There
difficult
is
to
the
use
first
because
program that we
you can
make
imagine
for
that at
what
the same
we
time that you
just
are using the
do
computer
in
for
sort of the
doing some of the
computer will
things.
be able
For
to
example, I have
use
to write the text
by
to the
us,
computer.
by the
At the same time,
utilizers.
I have to
So
remember all the
this is
instructions
about
that
just the
are made
system
in front
software.
of
The
that
system
line.
software is very
I mean that
useful.
yes,
Um,
it was very
and this
difficult
is
for
just the
us.
kind of programs that
Yes,
we made for making
to
the
cheat
computer
this
just
type of thing.
lighting up. You know, without that, I mean that it is
Interpreter, yes.
impossible for the
Now we have
computer
the
to work.
interpreter.
The types of the system software,
The
we talk
system
about the
software used to
Windows, the
translate
iOS,
high-level language
the
source code
the
into
Linux, and so on and
math-level
so forth.
language
So
object code
these
line by
programs are
line.
very,
It's
very
called
important.
interpreter.
They are just
Yes,
the
so
first
this
kind of programs that
at
we
this time
make
this is line
in the
by line,
computer.
you know.
And
So
then we can use the
yes,
application
and we talk
software. The
about the
application
fact that
software,
this is
this
a
is
high-level
what I'm
language,
using now,
the
for
machine
example, the
level code.
camera, or even
So
the
yes,
word,
the advantage of
yes,
using
the word,
interpreter is
I would
that
say the word
they
creator
are
or
very
the
easy to
word
write
maker, the
and they
PPT
do not
maker, and so on
require
and so
a
forth.
large
So
memory
these
space.
softwares are used by the just by us,
Yes,
by the
that
human beings,
depends
by the
just on
users
the,
at home.
I would
For
say,
what we just make
on
some
the
of
types
the
of
jobs like that. For example, I want to make a document at which I will
the
just make a
memory that we are
summary
using.
about what
Um,
happened in my
at this time,
just
the
in the
memory that
company.
we use
So
was
then I will use
very.
my computer. I will just use the hardware,
This is
and
not about
I
the
will use
memory.
the
There's a
fact of
term for
making the
that.
PPT
Um,
for just making the summary of everything
this is
that
about
happened
the card. I would say the
uh,
CPU. Yes,
in the
this is
company, and
about the
then I will
CPU.
give that to my boss.
The
You know,
CPU
so
at
this
that
is
time was
this kind
very
of
slow. Uh,
jobs
it was
that we
just
can,
unable to
I would say,
do,
do
I would say
easily.
to convert
That we can do easily with the computer.
the programs line by
And
line. It was very
yes,
important
but what we have to study
to
now,
know
this is about the
how
system software.
to just
Especially this is
make the
about the
functions
operating system.
as good as possible. And when you
So
just
what
switch
can we
off that
say
at that
here?
time, just what you wrote was deleted. So it was very difficult to use this type of CPU.
Excuse me. Yes. As you
To
know, system
overcome this,
software
they
acts
say
as
that
an interface
and they
for
do
the
not require
underlying
a large memory space.
hardware
However,
system.
there is a major
Yes. And
disadvantage to
here we
using
will
interpreter.
discuss some important
Interpreted
system
programs take a long
software
time
in
in
detail.
executing also a long time in
The
executing
operating
because
system.
this
Yes,
is
as you
line by
can
line
see,
so you can
we
get
have an image here.
to overcome
Firstly, this is the
disadvantage
hardware. that will be used,
especially
and
for
then
large
your
functions
hardware
compilers
will
where to block. The
interact, will
compilers
act
are just
with
the
the
most
system software, and then the
say the
system
most
software
difficult
will act with the
uh,
application software. You know,
system
so it is
software
very
that
important
most people use
to know, because
because
this
even
is
taking
even
into account
basic
the
knowledge about
weaknesses
the
of
computer
just
science,
the two terms that
how
we
the
know
computer
about, and
science
then
is,
to overcome
how the
that,
computer is
we
working in general.
create a system software that
So
will
operating
enable
system
you
is a
just to
lifeline
work
of the
better than
computer, and you connect all the basic devices like
system
the
software that
CPU,
store the complete
monitor,
progress,
keyboard, and mouse,
scan it,
plug in the
translate the
power
complete program into object code,
supply,
and
and
then
switching
purchase an
on thinking
executable
you
code
have everything
called
in
a
place.
compiler.
But the computer
So
will
that
not
was
start
outlined by
come
line.
to life use
And
unless it
at
has
that time,
an operating
what you
system
are going to
instead.
use, they say that on
Yes,
the face
the operating system
of
has
it,
to be
compilers
instead for
compare
what the
several
computer
weaknesses
works. Uh,
with
just
interpreters
for
because they
installing
are more
the
complex
functions of the computer,
than
because the
interpreters,
operating
need
system
more
keeping
memory space,
all the hardware
take more time in compiling, and
wedging,
stuff
so
so.
easily wedging by the users in a way
These
that
type
we
of things
can
that
use
are
that,
very
For
important.
example, when I will put the
Here are
button
some
A
of the
here,
steps
and
in
then
compiling
in my
some
screen
into
it will appear,
executable we have the
A. Why?
processing.
Because the
In
system
this stage,
software,
the
I would say
preprocessor
the operating
function
system is
typically
making sort
used
of
by
the
languages
hardware
like
will
C
be
and C++
just widely,
are
I
interpreted
would say weakly
numbers and
used
convert it to
by
specified
us, by
level
the users.
language.
So,
Yes. So
so
at that
yes, and
time,
what kind of
we
functions?
have the
Okay.
preprocessor. So you are gonna write
It
that
makes it makes
using
the
the software
coordination
like the C
between
or the
the
C++,
hardware,
and then
the different
it will
devices, so
convert it
between
to
the hardware at home, and the
specified level
coordination
language.
and
And
schedules
the lexical
multiple
analysis.
tasks as per
Here, all
priority,
instructions are
allocates
converted
your
to
resource
lexical
to
units
each task,
like the code
enables
length,
computer to
the
access network,
variables, arithmetic
enables
sign.
users to access and use application software. Yes,
So this is
yes, this
about
is
just the
these
framework
are
of
just
the
the
programming,
reasons for
so
why
the
we
programming
use
language.
the operating
Of
system.
course, you are using the
And like they said,
variables, you are using the symbols, the constants,
it
the
enables
operators,
also the computer
so
to
for
access
what
the
we
network.
communicate
It is
with the
important to take
computer.
into
And the
account,
fourth thing,
because
here
the
all the
computer
instructions are checked to see
is
if
also
they are
used for
composed
this
into
type
one
of
or two.
functions, because of the
Yes.
fact that you can just share
And
some of
of
the
the language,
resources
if
from
there
one
are
computer to another.
errors,
So it is
the
important
compiler
to
will
know.
ask you to fix them before you
And
can proceed.
what again
Yes.
enables users to access and
Yes.
use
So
application
they will
software.
just
Yes,
check if your
to
framework
use the application
works,
software.
is
So
able
this
to
is
be
thanks to the operating
executed.
system that you can use the application software. If there is
Compiling
some
at
of
this
the
stage,
errors or some of the things like that, the
source code
operation
is
system has to
converted
make
into object code.
in sort of
And this
correct
means
these
if there
mistakes,
are any
because
links,
you have to
external
use
files,
that
or
in a
libraries
very
or
correct
devices,
way. This is
or they
also
are
one of the
executable
job
with
of
the
the
edges of
operating
the
system.
program.
Like they said,
Also, if the code
beside
needs
initial
to
booting,
be
these are
rearranged
some of the
for
functions
actual
of the
execution, they will be
operating
rearranged.
system. Managing
And the
computer
final
resources like
output
hardware,
is the
software,
executable
shared
code that is
resources.
ready to
Allocating the
execute.
resources,
Yes.
prevent error
So
during
you have the
software use, like I said,
pre-processing, you have
control improper use of
the
computer.
lexical
Yes,
analysis,
like
you
some
have
of
the
the
processing,
viruses or
the
some of the
compiling
things like
and the
that have to be just
pre-processing,
avoided by
lexical
the computer
analysis,
approach. So it is
parsing,
important.
compiling, and linking. So these
So
steps
one
are
of
just
the
necessary in
earliest
compiler.
operating
Compiler
system
is
was the
mostly used for
MS-DOS,
making the
and developed by
computer
Microsoft
or operating system
for IBM
because
PC.
it is fast
It
and
was a
accessible.
command
Of course,
line
that
interface
just
OS
takes a
that
little bit more space than
revolutionized
for
the
the
PC market.
for
DOS
the
was difficult to use
that was the
because
interpreter, yes,
of
for the
its
interpreter,
interface.
but it
The
is
users
just
needed to
more
remember
efficient,
instructions to do
because of
their
the fact that
tasks,
for interpreter
and to
it's
make
just doing
computers
that line
more
by line.
accessible
You are gonna
and
write the instructions
user-friendly.
line by line,
Microsoft
and it
developed
will
the
be
graphical user
efficient, but
interface
it is too much,
based
too much
OS
time
called
that
the
you
Windows,
are gonna lose like that. So
which
what
transformed
you
the
have
way
to do,
people
this is
use the
just to use the
computer.
compiler.
Before that, was very
This is
difficult
also
for
through
us
the
to use the
compiler that
computer
we
because
make
of the fact that the
graphical
operating
user
system
interface.
was MS-DOS. And like
So
they said,
yes,
you have
it
to
is fully
remember
developed
some of
and
the instructions
ready
for using the
to
computer. So
for
it
the
was very
programmers.
complicated,
Yes,
because
so I would say just
just at the
thank you
same
for
time that
listening.
I have to remember
I
these
will
instructions,
make
I have to use all
more
the
lessons
functions of the
about that,
computer. So
because there are
yes,
some
it
of
is
the things
very
that we
difficult to
have to
manage.
study. This
So
lesson
what
is
the
making us
Microsoft company just
asking many
did
questions
was just to
at home.
use
So I will answer to
to
these
make.
questions just
So
to
to
make
create a
sometimes some
interface
evidence
that we
about the
can
computer
use
science.
just
Because like I
easily.
said
So
before,
what we call user
the mechanical
interface.
engineering
So
has not to be limited
this is
only
what
to
we are
the
using
computer
now.
science, but you have to go
We
a
are
little
using
bit
that very
far,
easily.
you
There
know,
is some
to
of the
just
icons like
take
that,
into account the
and
computer science, the
yes, it
AI,
is very useful
automation, and
for
yes,
us.
all this just
Before that was
will
very
make
difficult,
together
but now,
will be
yes, they make
constituting
that very great. And
our
now we are going to talk about the
mechanical
way
engineering
that
process.
the
So thank you
instructions are
for
just
listening, and
transformed for
yes,
what they
see you
will be
tomorrow.
used by the computer. Firstly, uh, that was just transformed to the assembler. The assembler is just a system software that converts assembly level programs to machine level code. Yes, so this is about to the first kind of operating system that I talked about. Just the fact that you have to remember the instructions to convert that to use the computer. Like they said, it has some of the advantages. It increases the efficiency of the programmer as remembering mnemonics is easier, and the productivity increases as number of errors decreases, and hence debugging time. Yes, um, thanks to this use, the bugs was a little bit, yes, was not very frequent, if I can say like that. And the programmer has access to hardware resources and hence has flexibility in writing programs customized to the specific computer. But even like that, that was very difficult to use, because you can imagine that at the same time that you are using the computer for doing some of the things, for example, I have to write the text in the computer. At the same time, I have to remember all the instructions that are making it sort of that I use that. I mean that, yes, it was very difficult for us yes, to deal with this type of thing. Interpreter, yes, and now we have the interpreter. The system software used to translate high-level language source code into machine-level language object code line by line is called an interpreter. Yes, so at this time this is line by line, So yes, and we talk about the fact that this is a high-level language to the machine-level code. Um, so yes, the advantage of using an interpreter is that they are very easy to write and they do not require a large memory space. Yes. Yes, that depends just on I would say, on the types of the memory that you are using. Um, at this time, the memory that we use was very, this is not about the memory, there's a term for that. Um, This is about the card, I would say, the CPU. Yes, this is about the CPU that we used. The CPU at that time was very slow. It was just able I would say, to convert the programs line by line. It was very important uh, to know how to make the instructions as good as possible. And when you just switch off that at that time, just what you wrote was deleted. So it was very difficult to use this type of CPU. To overcome this, they say that and they do not require a large memory space. However, there is a major disadvantage in using interpreters. Interpreted programs take a long time in executing, also a long time in executing because this is line by line, so you can guess. To overcome this disadvantage, especially for large programs, compilers were developed. The compilers are just the most, I would say, the most developed uh, system software that was introduced because it was taking into account the weaknesses of just the two terms that I talked about, and then to overcome that, we would uh, system software that was able to just to work better than the both. System software that store the complete program, scale it, translate the complete program into object code, and then creates an executable code is called a compiler. So that was not line by line. And at that time, what we are going to use, they say that on the face of it, compilers compare unfavorably with interpreters because they are more complex. That interpreters need more memory space, take more time in compiling source code also. Yes. So these type of things that are very important to count. There are some of the steps in compiling source code into executable code. You have the pre-processing. In this stage, the preprocessor instructions typically used by languages like C and C++ are interpreted. For example, the converted to assembly level language. Yes. So at that time, we have the preprocessor. So you are going to write that using the program like the C or the C++, and then it will be converted to the assembly level language. And the lexical analysis. Here, all instructions are converted to lexical units like the constants, the variables, arithmetic symbols. Yes. So this is about just the grammar of the program, of the programmation. Of course, you are using the variables, you are using the symbols, the constants, the letters, and all for what we communicate with the computer. And the parsing, here all the instructions are checked to see if they are conform to grammar rule. Yes. And of the language, if there are errors, compiler will ask you to fix them before you can proceed. Yes. Yes. So they will just check if your grammar rule is able to be executed. Compiling at this stage, source code is converted into object code. And linking, if there are any links to external files or libraries, addresses of their executable will be added to the program. Also, if the code needs to be rearranged for actual execution, they will be rearranged. And the final output is the executable code that is waiting to be executed. Yes. So you have the pre-processing, you have the lexical analysis, you have the parsing, the compiling, and the linking. Yes. So pre-processing, lexical analysis, parsing, compiling, and linking. So these steps are just making the compiler. The compiler is the most used for making the computer or operating system, because it is fast. Like I said, of course that it just takes a little bit more space than for the that was the interpreter. Yes, for the interpreter, but it is just more efficiency, because of the fact that for interpreter we just take that line by line. We are gonna write the instructions line by line, and it will be converted, but it is too much, too much time that we are gonna lose like that. So what you have to do, this is just to use the compiler, and this is also through the compiler that we make the graphical user interface. So yes, it is very developed and very easy to use for the programmers. Yes, so I would say just thank you for understanding. I will make more lessons about that, because there are some of the things that we have to study. This lesson is making us asking many questions. I know, so I will answer to these questions just making sometimes some lessons about the computer science, because like I said, the mechanical engineering has not to be limited on these lessons, but you have to go a little bit far, to just take into account the computer science, the AI, the automation, and yes, all these lessons will make together will be constituted our just mechanical engineering lessons. So thank you for understanding, and yes, see you tomorrow.